Elias wiped the sweat from his brow and looked at the strange device on his workbench. It was made of gears, wires, and glowing runes. He did not know if it would work, but he had spent months crafting it. Tonight, he wanted to test it. He was tired, but curiosity burned in his chest. He turned the final dial. The device hummed softly at first, then louder. The lights on the runes pulsed like a heartbeat. Elias took a step back. Suddenly, a bright flash filled the room. He shielded his eyes. When the light dimmed, a swirling hole floated in the air. It shimmered with colors he had never seen. Through it, he could see mountains taller than clouds, rivers of fire, and shadows of enormous flying creatures. Elias froze. His hands shook. He had heard legends of other worlds, but he had never imagined this. The roar came first. It was deep, loud, and filled the room like thunder. Elias's heart raced. He had not expected anyone, or anything, to come through the portal. A shape appeared. At first, it looked like smoke, but then it solidified. A small dragon with green scales and bright yellow eyes hovered just above the floor. It sniffed the air and tilted its head. Elias realized it was studying him, curious. He swallowed hard. His mind raced. He remembered the sharp tools on his bench. He grabbed a coil of wire and a small gear. Carefully, he set up a makeshift snare. The dragon's eyes widened as it stepped closer. It sniffed the trap and hissed, a sound like fire escaping from a cave. Elias held his breath. Slowly, the dragon touched the snare with one claw and tumbled backward. It blinked in surprise, then let out a low growl. Elias did not move. He did not know if it would attack again. But the dragon, after a moment, flapped its small wings and flew backward. It circled the portal and disappeared into the other world, leaving a faint smell of smoke behind. Elias exhaled. He had survived his first encounter. He stared at the portal. His mind raced with possibilities. Could he go through it? Should he? He had no weapons, no armor, and no training. Yet, a spark of curiosity burned inside him stronger than fear. He stepped closer. Through the shimmering light, he could see dragons of all sizes flying above a massive city built into cliffs. He could see smoke rising from chimneys and hear the faint echo of roars. Elias touched the edge of the portal. It was warm, alive almost, like it pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. He pulled back. The risk was enormous. He could be eaten, trapped, or lost forever. Yet, he could not stop thinking about what lay beyond. He had spent his life crafting, building, and creating. Was this another challenge for his hands, his mind? He looked at the small tools in his hands. A hammer, some wire, and his clever devices. It was not much, but it was all he had. And humans were clever. They had always survived by thinking, by making something from nothing. He could do it again, even here, even among dragons. Suddenly, a shadow passed over the portal. A huge wing blocked the light. Elias froze. He looked up and saw the silhouette of a massive dragon, easily 10 times the size of the one before. Its eyes glowed red, and it roared so loud that the walls of his workshop shook. Elias stumbled back. He almost dropped the device. His mind screamed at him to run, but he could not leave the portal. Not yet. He noticed something. The large dragon hesitated at the edge. It seemed curious, cautious. Elias's fear turned into a thought: maybe, just maybe, dragons were not as unstoppable as legend said. They were intelligent, yes, but he had his tools, his wits, and his ability to think fast. That could be enough. Elias took a deep breath and adjusted his device. He twisted a small knob and aimed it at the portal. The light flickered, and the swirling colors grew brighter. He was not sure what would happen. The massive dragon let out a warning roar and batted at the air with its claw, but it did not come through. Elias saw his chance. His curiosity, his courage, and his cleverness had brought him this far. He stepped closer to the portal. 1 foot, then another. The floor felt solid under him, but the air shimmered like heat over a fire. The roar came again, louder, closer. Elias's heart pounded. Yet he moved forward, driven by the thrill of discovery. He was a human, small and fragile compared to the dragons. Yet in his hands, he held his mind, his skill, and his courage. That was enough. As he reached the edge of the portal, a strange calm washed over him. He could see the dragon city clearly now, the fire-lit mountains, the flying dragons, the enormous palace carved into cliffs. He knew he was risking everything. But one thought burned brighter than all fear: he could create, he could adapt, he could survive. Humans always found a way. And with that, Elias stepped into the unknown. Elias stepped out of the portal and into a world that made his breath catch. The air was thick and warm. The sky glowed orange from rivers of molten lava flowing between jagged mountains. Towering cliffs rose on every side, and dragons of all sizes flew overhead. Some were small, with shiny green scales, but others were enormous, wings stretching wider than houses, eyes glowing like fire. He looked down and realized the ground beneath him was solid stone, carved into terraces and paths. Strange plants with glowing leaves grew along the edges. Smoke curled from cracks in the rock, giving the whole place an otherworldly glow. He took a cautious step forward. Every sense screamed caution, but curiosity pushed him on. Elias noticed movement ahead. A group of dragons was gathered around a massive crystal palace built into the cliff. Their scales reflected the molten light, shining like jewels. They were talking, or roaring, in low, deep tones. Elias could not understand the sounds, but he could tell they were important, serious. Some dragons looked aggressive, others more thoughtful. He realized this was their city, their home, and he was an intruder. He hid behind a rock, studying their patterns. They walked in careful circles, wings tucked, eyes scanning. Elias remembered his tools and small devices. He pulled a coil of wire from his belt and set up a tiny alarm on a rock nearby. If a dragon came too close, a small spark would fly, making noise to warn him. It was simple, but it gave him a little confidence. As he explored further, Elias saw signs of dragon life everywhere. Some dragons were hunting large lizard-like creatures. Others carried glowing crystals from the mines. He noticed that dragons, even with their power, had routines. They followed paths, repeated tasks, and relied on their size and strength. Elias realized humans could use brains and clever tools where dragons relied on brute force. Suddenly, a shadow passed over him. Elias ducked just in time. A dragon, bigger than any he had seen, landed with a thundering crash nearby. Its eyes were red, and smoke rose from its nostrils. Elias held his breath. The dragon sniffed the air, looking for the source of the strange smell. Elias remembered the small alarm he had set and quietly triggered it. A spark flew, and the dragon jumped back, confused. It roared and flapped its wings, but did not see him. Elias slipped away, careful and quiet. He found a narrow canyon that led closer to the dragon city. From there, he could watch without being seen. Dragons moved in groups, guarded their territory, and reacted quickly to threats. Elias realized he needed more than hiding. He needed tools. Using his skills, he began to collect rocks, vines, and pieces of broken crystal. He worked quietly, making small devices that could distract dragons, signal danger, or help him climb cliffs. Every invention made him feel more confident. Elias noticed something surprising. Dragons, though powerful, were predictable. Their movements were fast, but their thinking was rigid. They did not adapt quickly to new situations. Elias smiled to himself. A human could use clever tricks, improvisation, and creativity to survive. A single person, if smart enough, could turn the world upside down. One evening, as he observed the city from a high ledge, a young dragon approached him cautiously. Its scales were shiny blue, and its eyes curious. Elias froze, but then slowly held out a small glowing crystal he had found. The dragon sniffed it, touched it with its claw, and seemed fascinated. Elias realized that dragons were intelligent, but they were also curious. Curiosity could be used. Curiosity could be a tool, just like any device he had built. Elias began to experiment carefully. He left small devices near the city paths, tiny smoke bombs, reflective crystals, and moving objects. Dragons reacted with surprise, stepping back or roaring in confusion. Elias watched from hiding, taking notes. Each encounter taught him more about their strengths, weaknesses, and routines. As he worked, he noticed that dragons communicated through gestures, roars, and posture. Aggression, curiosity, and caution were clear to him now. He could predict behavior by studying carefully. His mind raced with ideas. Humans were small and fragile, but they could plan, adapt, and improvise faster than dragons. With patience and cleverness, he could survive here and maybe even gain control over situations dragons could not understand. By night, Elias climbed to a high cliff and looked down at the dragon city. Fires glowed below, and dragons slept on terraces and rocks. He felt a mixture of awe and determination. He was far from home, in a world of creatures that could crush him in seconds. Yet he had his mind, his tools, and his courage. He was a human, small but clever, and humans always found a way to survive. A faint roar echoed in the distance, closer than before. Elias gripped his tools and smiled. The dragons were powerful, yes, but he was thinking faster than they could. And that made all the difference. Tonight, he would rest. Tomorrow, he would explore more, learn more, and begin to turn this dragon world into a place where human cleverness could make a mark. For the first time since stepping into this realm, Elias felt not just fear, but excitement. He was a human among dragons, and humans could always find a way. Elias spent the next morning exploring the dragon city more closely. He moved quietly along the cliffs, hiding behind rocks and ledges. Every dragon he saw was massive, powerful, and fast. Yet, as he watched, he noticed patterns. They always followed the same paths, repeated the same routines, and trusted their size over thinking. Elias smiled to himself. Humans were small, but they could think faster and act more cleverly than any dragon. He gathered materials from the cliffs, sharp rocks, vines, and broken crystals. Using his small tools, he began to make simple devices, small traps that could trip a dragon, reflective crystals to blind them, and even tiny smoke bombs that puffed out smoke and noise. None of it was deadly, but it could create confusion. His mind raced with ideas. A single human could survive if he stayed clever and careful. Elias experimented carefully. He set a small trap along a path where dragons walked. One dragon, a medium-sized red one, came by and stepped on it. The trap made a loud noise and a small flash of smoke. The dragon jumped back, roared, and flapped its wings in confusion. Elias watched from his hiding place, heart pounding. It worked. A simple human invention could control the environment more than brute force. He knew he could not stay hidden forever. Dragons were curious, and sooner or later they would notice him. Today, he saw the first signs. A dragon noble, large and gold-scaled, stepped into the area he was studying. It had eyes like molten fire and wings wider than a house. Elias froze. This dragon was powerful, smarter than the others, and clearly in charge. His heart raced. One wrong move could end him. But Elias did not panic. He had tools, cleverness, and patience. Slowly, he stepped from his hiding place with a small device in his hand, a gear-driven object that moved along the ground, making a faint clicking sound. The dragon watched carefully. Elias placed it on the path and hid behind a rock. The device moved forward, clicking and whirring. The dragon tilted its head, curious, and stepped closer. Then the device puffed out a small cloud of smoke. The dragon hissed and flapped its wings, startled. It looked around and saw nothing. Elias held his breath, waiting. The dragon finally turned and walked away, confused but unharmed. Elias exhaled slowly. He realized something important. Dragons were strong, yes, but predictable. They were intelligent, but rigid. A clever human could use their own rules and habits against them. He began thinking of larger plans. If one device could confuse a dragon, several could control a whole path or area. If he learned more about their behavior, he could avoid danger entirely while influencing their movements. As he worked, Elias explored a canyon that led to the Dragon Palace. He watched guards and workers moving in patterns. He noticed the dragons communicated with gestures, wing movements, and roars. Aggression, curiosity, and caution were all clear. He could predict reactions if he observed carefully. His mind was racing with possibilities. Humans were weak in strength, but they were strong in thought. That advantage could save his life, and even let him shape the world around him. That afternoon, he experimented with small distractions. He used a pile of rocks and set a small rolling device. As a group of dragons approached, the device moved and clattered down a slope. The dragons jumped back, confused, scanning for danger. Elias hid nearby, smiling. Every small success made him bolder. He was learning quickly. Humans were clever, and cleverness could overcome size and fire. Later, as the sun set behind the cliffs, Elias climbed to a ledge overlooking the city. He could see the dragons resting on terraces, smoke curling from chimneys, and smaller dragons playing or hunting. He noticed a pattern: patrol dragons always returned to the same ledges, resting at the same time each day. That information could help him move safely or create more devices to confuse them. A sudden roar broke the quiet. A golden dragon, the same noble he had seen earlier, landed nearby. Its eyes glowed red. Elias froze. This dragon was intelligent and dangerous. It sniffed the air, clearly aware of something unusual. Elias held his tools tightly. Then he remembered his devices. He threw a small reflective crystal onto the path. The sunlight hit it and flashed into the dragon's eyes. The dragon blinked, hissed, and stomped back, confused. Elias's heart pounded. He had done it again. A simple human trick had worked. That night, Elias rested on a high ledge, looking over the dragon city. His body was tired, but his mind was alive. He had survived encounters with dragons twice today. He had learned patterns, made small inventions, and used clever thinking to control situations. He realized humans were weak in size but strong in mind. One human could survive, and even influence, a dragon world if they were clever enough. Elias smiled to himself. He was far from home, in a world full of creatures that could crush him with a single swipe. Yet he was alive, learning, and gaining an edge. He was a human, small but clever, and cleverness had power. Tomorrow, he thought, he would explore more, build better devices, and maybe even test how far human ingenuity could go against dragons. He watched the glowing city below, dragons sleeping, fires flickering, and smoke rising. He was alone, but he was not powerless. Humans always found a way. And Elias had already begun to prove it. The next day, Elias knew he could not stay hidden any longer. The golden dragon noble he had seen before, Varkath, was now clearly aware of a human in the city. Elias had observed its movements and patterns for days. Varkath was powerful, fast, and intelligent. One wrong step could end him instantly. But Elias had spent hours planning, creating devices, and studying dragon behavior. He had tools, clever tricks, and human ingenuity on his side. He moved cautiously along the cliffs, carrying small devices in his satchel. Tiny traps, smoke bombs, reflective crystals, all simple, but effective. His plan was not to fight the dragons head-on, he could never match them in strength. His plan was to confuse, distract, and outthink them. Humans survived because they could think, adapt, and improvise faster than any dragon could. As he approached the main terrace, Varketh appeared. Its golden scales gleamed in the sunlight, and its eyes burned like fire. Elias froze. The dragon lowered its massive head and sniffed the air. It knew a human was near. Elias waited, holding his breath. One false move, and Varketh could crush him. Elias quickly set a small device on the path. It was a simple mechanism made of wire, gears, and a crystal. When triggered, it would spin, flash, and make a loud clicking sound. He ducked behind a rock and waited. Varketh stepped onto the path. The device spun and clicked, reflecting sunlight into the dragon's eyes. The dragon hissed and stomped back, confused. Elias seized the moment. He threw a small smoke bomb toward another path. Thick white smoke rolled across the terrace, and the dragon roared, trying to figure out where the human had gone. Elias moved silently, using the chaos to his advantage. He climbed higher on the cliffs, observing the city below. He noticed other dragons gathering, attracted by the noises and smoke. But the more dragons came, the more disoriented they became. Elias realized that even powerful creatures could be overwhelmed by clever human planning. One person, thinking fast and acting smart, could change the battlefield without fighting directly. Varketh roared and flew down toward him. Elias ducked behind a large rock. The dragon circled, searching, its wings casting shadows over the cliff. Elias had anticipated this. He triggered another device, sending small rocks rolling down the slope. They clattered against the terrace, drawing Varketh's attention. The dragon snarled and lunged toward the noise, giving Elias the opening to escape. He climbed to a narrow canyon that led closer to the heart of the dragon city. Along the way, he set small alarms and reflective crystals. Every step he took was calculated, every movement designed to confuse or mislead. He knew that dragons were strong, but they were predictable. Humans, though small, could use their mind and tools to survive against even the strongest enemies. By late afternoon, Elias reached a high ledge overlooking the dragon palace. He could see the city below, dragons moving, and Varketh still searching. Elias felt a surge of confidence. His devices had worked perfectly. He had not fought with claws or fire. He had fought with thought, with creativity, and with skill. This was what made humans dangerous. Not brute force, but intelligence. Suddenly, a group of smaller dragons appeared on the terrace below, heading toward the smoke and noises Elias had created. They hissed and roared, confused by the devices. Elias smiled. They were powerful, yes, but each step could be predicted, each reaction anticipated. With careful planning, he could manipulate them, control their movements, and remain safe. As night fell, Elias carefully set one final device, a small mechanical glider designed to carry a flare across the city. When launched, it flew over the terraces, leaving a trail of light and smoke. Dragons below flinched and scattered. Varketh roared in frustration, its patience wearing thin. Elias watched from above, amazed at how simple human inventions could turn even the strongest dragons into confused animals. By the time the city grew quiet, Elias had learned everything he needed. Dragons were strong and intelligent, but they were not adaptable. One clever human, moving quickly and thinking ahead, could survive and even influence their world. He had faced direct confrontation with Varketh and outsmarted it, not with strength, but with planning, observation, and simple tools. Elias rested on the high ledge, looking down at the city. Fires flickered below, dragons roared in the distance, and smoke curled into the night sky. He was far from home, in a world ruled by creatures that could crush him easily. Yet he felt powerful, alive, and confident. Humans were small, but their minds were sharp. One human could change a situation dragons thought was certain. One human could survive. One human could win. Tomorrow, Elias thought, he would push further. He would learn more about the dragons, test his devices, and see how far human cleverness could go. He knew Varketh would not forget him, but neither would he forget the power of thought, creativity, and ingenuity. Humans were fragile in body, yes, but unstoppable in mind. Elias smiled. For the first time in this strange world, he felt not fear, but excitement. The dragons thought they were rulers, but a single human had already begun to reshape their reality. And they had no idea what he was capable of next. Elias woke before dawn. The dragon city was quiet, but he knew it would not stay that way for long. Varketh, the golden dragon noble, was still searching for him. Elias had survived the last encounters because he had been careful, clever, and fast. Today, he decided it was time to take full advantage of his human ingenuity. Not to fight blindly, but to show that one human could outthink an empire of dragons. He gathered his devices, smoke bombs, reflective crystals, small mechanical traps, and the glider he had built. Each device was simple, but combined they could create confusion and fear among even the largest dragons. He moved quietly through the cliffs, placing traps along paths, setting alarms, and arranging crystals to reflect sunlight into the dragon's eyes. Each step was calculated. Every movement was part of a plan. Humans were small, yes, but humans thought faster than dragons. As the sun rose, the city came alive. Dragons patrolled the terraces, hunting, and communicating with roars and wing movements. Elias watched carefully. He noticed patterns he had learned over days, the same patrols, the same routines, the same reactions to danger. He smiled. He had studied them, understood them, and now he could control the battlefield without ever raising a weapon. Suddenly, Varketh appeared, flying low and roaring in anger. The golden dragon landed on a terrace below, its massive claws digging into the stone. Elias triggered a small device, a crystal that reflected the sunlight into Varketh's eyes. The dragon hissed and turned, momentarily blinded. Elias moved along a narrow cliff path, setting off smoke bombs that filled the terraces with thick white smoke. Dragons hissed and flapped their wings, confused. One large dragon stumbled into a small pit Elias had dug earlier, struggling to climb out. Elias continued carefully, moving higher and higher, placing traps and devices. The dragons became frantic. They could not predict what was happening. Each human trick worked because they relied on patterns, strength, and tradition. Humans, however, could adapt instantly. Elias realized the truth: dragons could not match a human mind in strategy, creativity, and unpredictability. From his high ledge, Elias launched his mechanical glider. It flew over the city, leaving a trail of smoke and sparks. Dragons scattered below, panicked. Varketh roared, frustrated and confused. Elias smiled. The Dragon Empire, mighty and terrifying, was reacting to a single human using clever devices and careful planning. One human could influence many dragons at once. Varketh landed closer, determined to confront him. Elias triggered a series of small traps simultaneously, rocks rolling, smoke bombs exploding, crystals reflecting sunlight. Varketh tried to attack, but every move he made was anticipated by Elias. The golden dragon became more frustrated, roaring in anger, unable to catch the small human who moved with speed, intelligence, and cunning. Elias climbed to the highest ledge above the palace. From there, he could see the entire dragon city below, smoke curling into the sky, dragons scattered in confusion. He set one final device, a combination of reflective crystals and a mechanical alarm. When triggered, it created a bright flash and a loud clicking noise. The dragons below froze, looking around in fear. Even Varketh, massive and proud, stepped back, realizing he had underestimated the human. Elias looked down at the dragons. He was small, fragile, and human, but he had survived where brute strength had failed. One person, clever and observant, could outthink an entire dragon empire. He felt a surge of pride. This was what humans could do. Humans could survive, adapt, and even dominate through intelligence and creativity. Strength alone was not enough. As night fell, the dragons retreated to their cliffs, wary and cautious. Varketh watched from a distance, his golden eyes narrowed. Elias knew they would not forget him. The dragons had learned something important: humans were dangerous not because of claws or fire, but because of thought, planning, and imagination. Elias had proven that one human could change the balance of power in a dragon world. He finally returned to a safe ledge and rested. His body was tired, but his mind was alive and sharp. He thought about everything he had done, studying patterns, making clever devices, predicting behavior, and using his small tools to influence a powerful empire. He realized that humans were small, yes, but their minds were powerful beyond imagination. One human could survive, adapt, and even thrive where dragons ruled. Elias smiled and looked at the glowing dragon city below. Fires flickered, smoke rose into the night sky, and dragons roared quietly in the distance. They were powerful, magnificent, and terrifying, but they were predictable. Elias had used human ingenuity, patience, and courage to turn the dragon world into a place where one human could leave a mark. He thought of his world, far away, and of humans who had always survived by thinking, creating, and adapting. Dragons ruled with power, but humans ruled with intelligence. One human, with determination and cleverness, could change worlds. Elias had done it. He had survived, learned, and proven that human ingenuity was unstoppable. As he looked at the stars above, Elias knew that dragons would never forget the human who had outsmarted them. They had underestimated him, but humans had a strength dragons could never match: the mind. Small, fragile, but brilliant. And that made all the difference. Elias smiled and whispered to himself, "Humans always find a way."